Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States, a woman who has made history by being the first female, African American, and Asian American to hold such a prestigious office. Recently, she sat down with Oprah to discuss her political journey, her vision, and her role in the Biden administration. However, beneath the polished exterior of this media appearance lies a series of policy failures, particularly concerning her role as the nation's border czar, an issue that has impacted the lives of countless Americans. Before ascending to the vice presidency, Kamala Harris built her political career as the Attorney General of California and a U.S. Senator. She often touted herself as a progressive reformer, someone who could tackle issues like immigration, criminal justice reform, and economic inequality. But has she lived up to her promises? Today, we will explore Kamala Harris's role as the U.S. border czar and her involvement in policies like Proposition 47, examining the real-world consequences of her leadership. In March 2021, amid escalating tensions at the U.S.-Mexico border, President Joe Biden entrusted Vice President Kamala Harris with a critical assignment to address the burgeoning migration crisis. As border czar, her role was to oversee diplomatic efforts, focus on root causes of migration, and propose solutions for a humanitarian crisis that had begun to spiral out of control.
Our focus is to address the root causes of migration, not just the symptoms. We must invest in Central America and work diplomatically to stabilize the region.
Harris's strategy centered around long-term solutions addressing poverty, violence, and corruption in countries like Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The idea was to slow migration at its source. Yet, as well-intentioned as this plan might sound, it failed to consider the immediate and critical situation at the border, where migrants were crossing in record numbers. With a record-breaking 1.7 million migrants encountered at the southern border in 2021 alone, Harris's approach seemed out of touch with the urgency on the ground. U.S. Customs and Border Protection (PEP) was overwhelmed, and shelters were packed beyond capacity. The infrastructure was simply not equipped to handle the influx of people. Meanwhile, the human toll mounted, families separated, unaccompanied minors living in temporary shelters, and communities both north and south of the border left in chaos. Despite Harris's assurances, the border crisis only worsened under her oversight. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, millions of illegal immigrants have crossed the border since her appointment. While many seek asylum from dangerous conditions, others, including hardened criminals, have taken advantage of the overwhelmed immigration system. Among those who entered was Victor Martinez Hernandez, an illegal immigrant with a violent past. Hernandez, who had been previously deported multiple times, would go on to brutally murder Rachel Morin, a mother of 5, in an attack that sent shockwaves through the nation. Rachel Morin, a vibrant young mother, was found murdered on a Maryland hiking trail in August 2023. Her killer, Victor Martinez Hernandez, had a history of violent crime and had crossed the U.S. border, illegally taking advantage of the system's weaknesses. Harris's failure to implement meaningful border control measures allowed this dangerous individual to enter the country.
How could this happen? Why was someone like Hernandez allowed into our country? My daughter would still be alive if our borders were secure.
Morin's death, horrific and senseless, is a painful reminder of the real-world consequences of lax border security. Harris, who was tasked with fixing the crisis, has been noticeably absent from the front lines of the border. In fact, since her appointment, she has only visited the border once. Her detachment from the situation has left American communities vulnerable to individuals like Hernandez, who slip through the cracks. While Kamala Harris's role as border czar has received significant criticism, her legacy in criminal justice reform is equally controversial. As California's Attorney General, Harris supported Proposition 47, known as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, a bill aimed at reducing the state's prison population by reclassifying certain nonviolent felonies as misdemeanors.
This is a step toward a more just and fair criminal justice system. It will reduce mass incarceration and help our communities thrive.
But Prop 47 has proven to be a double-edged sword. The bill redefined a host of crimes including shoplifting, petty theft, and drug possession as misdemeanors, provided the property involved was worth less than $950. While Harris may have hoped this would ease the burden on prisons, the reality on the streets has been far more troubling. In cities like San Francisco, where Prop 47 is in full effect, crime has surged. The threshold for felony charges is so high that criminals can steal up to $950 worth of goods and only face a misdemeanor charge, if they're caught at all. What was once framed as a victory for social justice has become a nightmare for residents and business owners. Retail theft in San Francisco jumped by 53% from 2019 to 2022. And the city has seen a rise in open-air drug markets, where addicts buy and use drugs in broad daylight. Harris's Prop 47 has not only failed to curb crime, but it has emboldened criminals who now operate without fear of real consequences.
This isn't justice, it's chaos. Harris's Prop 47 has destroyed our neighborhoods.
Business owners, struggling to survive in this climate, have seen their livelihoods decimated. Stores are repeatedly targeted by brazen thieves who know that they can escape with minimal punishment. The very communities Harris claimed to want to help are bearing the brunt of these misguided reforms.
I'm proud of the work we're doing and the progress we've made.
But what progress has truly been made? Millions of illegal immigrants continue to cross the border, some of whom pose real threats to public safety. Cities like San Francisco, once hubs of innovation and culture, are overrun by crime. And families like Rachel Morin's are left to pick up the pieces after tragic and preventable losses. As Kamala Harris enjoys the limelight, the nation grapples with the consequences of her failed leadership. From the crisis at the southern border to the lawlessness on the streets of California, the results of Harris's policies are felt in every corner of the country. Leadership isn't about appearances on talk shows or making promises, it's about results. And in the case of Kamala Harris, the results have been catastrophic. As the border remains open, crime surges, and communities suffer, Americans are left wondering, how many more lives will be impacted before real change is made? The time for leadership is now. And in the case of Kamala Harris, that leadership has been nowhere to be found.